Wednesday night. Here
What's
we
up,
are.
man?
What is happening? It
Yeah.
is live, Tech Talk Live, Wednesday night on YouTube. The
hmm
only YouTube Tech Talk Live show that actually answers tech questions.
Tech
So,
questions, real tech questions, like the
yeah,
ones you want to
real,
know about.
real deal. Like I had a 318 Hemi one time, and I'm going to tell you all about it.
Right? Right. My
Yeah,
uncle's brother's nephew's friend. Right. That guy.
exactly. Yeah.
hmm
So, just a warmed over some all block. All right. Well, I guess to run down the list, we got Mr. Wilburn. He's in here making sure that the internet and YouTube goes on as planned. Um, LP94 Lars is here. Danny Boyd, One Eyed Cat, Mrs. One Eyed Cat, Buff Del Campo, Clayton's Toolbox, Mama M3, Fab Race Mod Repeat, Buick Smith, Dust Devil Garage, Michael Schmidt, Bill McKyska. Let's see. And I think, and Junkyard D just jumped in here. So,
Nice.
welcome to another fantastic Wednesday night Tech Talk Live.
Right.
Yeah. And I came with nothing this week. I have
Oh,
nothing.
really? I actually have some stories. I went to the
Oh,
very first day of Sick 66. I drove out and did that. That was actually pretty cool, man. We drove all the way out there and we got a tour of P1 and yeah, I actually got some really
well,
cool stuff for next Wednesday. So
okay. So I do have some cool stuff. Last
sure.
weekend, I took my boy and we went down to cruising the coast.
Yeah.
I was literally there for like one day. I got super sick. As soon as we arrived, went and got a steak at this nice steak place, and then crashed out. I wasn't feeling all that good. It was like 7:30. I went to bed. I woke up at like midnight, like sweating bullets. You can tell when you got a fever. It was high, right?
Yeah.
And then the whole next day, I kind of just pushed through. Um, and then about we went to the swap meet, and then I don't know, about halfway through the swap meet, my son was just like, "Hey, let's just go home. You look miserable," and I'm like, "Yeah, but it's still 8 hour drive home." So
Yeah, I was gonna Iron Man it from one place to the next, but yeah, I was actually gonna go down and meet him down there. I was gonna leave Friday night and meet up down there, but I was just like, by the time after dinner Friday, I was just like, we had this like Huckle Bucks barbecue, and
uh-huh.
I was just like, oh yeah, it's one of the few times where I said, you know what, I don't know if I can make that drive.
Yeah, well, Mr. Wilburn here is calling us the anti-sorcery show.
I saw that and
And
laughed at it when he wrote
yeah,
it.
well, there's only a few of us that really know the meaning behind that. But
My
uh,
crystal ball.
a few years ago, I'll enlighten most of you. A few years ago, we were going to do. We were actually just going to get a booth at PRI
Yeah.
and then have the automotive sorcerer up there on the stage and doing all the sorcery stuff. You know, putting the cam in dot to dot, flipping the pistons, the whole 9 yards, every sorcery item that there is.
Yeah.
Um, but we thought it'd be cool just to have like a fake booth at PRI.
And people think it's like real brochures and the whole bit.
Yeah, yeah, you just make it look legit, and then it's like all fake. So I thought it'd be funny. But I think quite a few of us were in on that gag. A lot of them that went to PRI, we were like, "No, dude, this is what we need to do." But
I think
uh,
5 people on Earth would actually understand it and laugh at it, but it would be like, what was that guy, the Man in the Moon guy?
Andy
Yeah.
Warhol, right? And his
No,
name? No,
not Warhol.
Andy. I know what you're talking about. He was on
Yes.
Saturday Night Live and got thrown
Yeah.
off.
Yeah. Exactly. Andy Kaufman, wasn't it
Kaufman.
Kaufman?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kaufman.
So like he would make these jokes that only him and 2 other people on Earth would know and put it out there, like these inside jokes. So it would be like one of those deals. It'd be the only joke we do. We'd be the only ones knowing about it. It should be funny. Yeah,
Yeah.
Kaufman. That's it. Yeah, Andy Kaufman.
Let's see. Yeah, Danny Boyd saying we could do lifter preload adjustments. Yeah, we could do all that neat stuff that everybody wonders about,
Yeah,
right?
right. That's absolutely not true, but still, people say it is. So
Yeah. Well, uh, John saying he might go back to PRI this year.
I'm
All
going.
right.
I'll be there.
Well, have fun, fellas. All right.
I'm going to be there Wednesday night. We have a dinner. I think we do a dinner Thursday. I'm going to Don Schumacher Racing for a tour Thursday night, and then Friday I'll be there in the morning to hobnob a little bit, and then we're driving home Friday. Get home Friday night late.
Two Hack Jeff said that he'll be there.
Oh, bitchin'. Awesome.
Yeah. So an SSR performance just popped in. What's up, YouTube?
Nice.
What is happening, Mr. James, and not so much the other James show. But yeah, it's good to have you all back in here. Tonight we don't really have any updates for the Super 3 or Screaming Threes or whatever class we're going to end up calling it. But I think we need to probably start putting pen to paper and get some real deal rules put out so we can have some neat heads up class where all of them are classed together.
Yeah.
So that would definitely be fun.
Yeah, I agree. We were all busy this weekend, and by the time I got back and got everything unloaded, and we drove the Dart all the way up there too. 5 hours in a car. My friend's never been in an old car that long, driving like actually cross country technically, and we had only one issue with the Dart, and who knows what it was. We had just crossed over into the Missouri line, and it was Mammoth Springs. We were like on 60 or 63, I can't remember. And it's a 2-lane road. We're doing like 70 miles an hour. Obviously, big truck behind us, carload of people, nowhere to pull off. Cars humming along, and all of a sudden it just shut off. Like, didn't stumble, didn't do nothing. It just shut off. We're doing 70, 75, and then no power. So then I put it in
everything
neutral.
on the dash shut off too?
No, everything was, the engine just shut off just like that. Nothing, just out of the blue.
Oh.
So then I was like, okay, put it into neutral, turn the key, boom, 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 boom. The car started right up, put it back in drive, and kept on going. That was
that's not even an issue.
So it was the weirdest thing.
It had a dead miss
resistor.
It had a dead miss on like all 6 cylinders.
The only thing I could think of is that if the car sits for a while, because of that, on the Chrysler connector that's on the distributor, it will get some sort of corrosion on it, and you have to wiggle it back and forth, and then it'll start. Now, I had done that because the car sat in my trailer for a long time, and I switched the cars out between that and the Beaver. And I had just switched it out like 2 days before, so it could be that I didn't clean it off good enough, and it just stopped all connection and then fired right back up on its own.
And Dust Devil Brian said it's the ballast resistor, which I don't think you have one. Don't you have an ATI set up in there?
Yeah. I get rid of those ballast resistors. I've been doing that since like the 90s. I did on my Volkswagens, and I did it on everything just because I could never really afford an MSD, and I had to figure out something so that way the ballast resistor, anytime I would go on a long drive, the car would start off great, and then we just get worse and worse and worse performance the hotter that ballast resistor got, and the voltage would just continually drop to the point where I just had to pull over and let it cool down and get back on driving again. So I was like, yeah, I don't.
Two Hacks is saying that the flux capacitor fell below 1.22 gigawatts.
Exactly what it was. I agree with you that right there. Yeah. That's exactly what
you need. A Mr. Fusion.
I need a Mr. Fusion, right? Open it up, some banana peels, good to go.
Yeah, some old beer. It'll be ready to rock.
Right.
Yeah.
Throw the can in there.
Well, tonight's show, we really didn't have anything to talk about, so I kind of just figured we'd wing it some.
Yeah.
I mean,
I never bring notes.
You know what I've noticed? What I saw today is I saw a post with people asking if Crower was still around and still functioning.
Now, I'm not going to speak for them. I can only tell you what I know. They are still functioning. They're not doing rods anymore. I believe they're still doing cranks. And as far as valve train, I don't know. Now, once again, I can only for the facts know that they stopped making rods. I called them up to get some bushings and some other things. Yeah, they're not doing them anymore. So I don't know. I couldn't tell you on that.
Well, they had a CNC machine that was cutting them out.
What's that?
At Crower.
Yeah, but it was only a 2-axis. So it's technically 3, but it was there was so much. It was so time consuming and so labor intensive because there was CNC cutting them out, but there was like 15 different stations that one rod had to go through. So that's why it took 8 weeks. and how many hands it had to change hand. If a lot more of that was automated, yes, I believe, when I was starting to do time studies for, I'm not talking bad about any company. Please don't say that, think that. But the time studies it was just very labor intensive. There was nothing that was ever updated since Bruce was around. And because of that, that's what
Well, and
happens.
he died like what, 2018,
Uh,
2017,
19,
19?
or
Okay.
18. Yeah, 18 or 19. Yeah. There was actually just a memory in my phone about it just a few weeks ago. So, yeah.
Huh.
So, but as far as I know, they're still around.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Buick Smith says he had to walk 5 miles home to get trailer after I burnt up a fresh set of points in my 1970 C20 after only 15 miles. Stupid Chinesium.
yep. That's why I
Dude,
couldn't find any good points.
I
I went,
stopped because I know for a few years there, I was like, oh, Tony may be onto something here with doing points and everything. And then you can't buy good ones.
nope.
They literally just burn up and
I,
fall apart. Well,
I
okay,
have
I
a
take
set.
that back. I've been buying XL points, which I think they're still made in the USA. They're much higher quality than the junk you get at the parts store.
But they still don't last.
I don't know how long they last.
No, I know. I've got a set right. I'm looking at a set right here, and this was my last point distributor, and I was running it in my green car, and they lasted about an oil change, and then they were done.
Huh.
That was it. They flaked up. Now I sanded them. I got my little tip and sanded them down and cleaned them up with some memory cloth, and I
Uh-huh.
was able to get them to last another oil change. But by that time, the performance had gone down so much that the car was starting to backfire and do some funny things, and so it just is not worth it. Where the HEI is always the same, doesn't make any more power. It's just always the same. You know exactly what you're going to get out of it. That's the only reason why I like it.
All right. Well, Clayton's Toolbox says on the new car I'm building, the slick stick out 70 style.
Hmm.
How much clearance between the tread and fender lip is needed? Right now, it's about 1.5 inches. I might trim it and add a flare. Oh, dude, 1.5 inches probably isn't going to cut it. The suspension will move more than that
Yeah.
before it hits the snubbers.
Yep.
So you'd be hard pressed to get away with 1.5 inches. You're going to have to
Yeah.
probably start looking at something else.
Yeah. You're gonna have to flare it.
Fabrice Mon repeats says Shane 100% got 5,500 miles out of the last set I had. I went electric.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's exactly.
electronic.
You're exactly right. That's exactly how long they lasted, and they were like, they were supposed to be new old stock or 1990s version, and I bought them on eBay a while back, but when I was going to continue to stay points, but yes, that's all I could get on them. It's about 6,000 miles, about 2 oil changes. That was it.
All right. So Buick Smith saying that I have had a set from my local speed shop in the GS for more than 20,000 miles now. Still look great. Must have been old
Mhm.
stock. It has the good lube pad before the rubbering block. That's the
Perfect.
ones I got from Axel. Had a nice lube
Mhm.
pad on the before the rubbing block. So I was kind of happy when I saw that. I'm like, oh wow! It even came with some grease to put on it, right? Like,
Yeah.
man, you don't even get this crap anymore. So it seems like the people making XL points were on it. They kind of knew what good points are supposed to look like. But I have no idea what's happening with the rest of them. I know that the quality had gone down significantly in like 2020, and so it's
I'm going to
probably
say
like
15. 15 is
15.
when I started noticing it. Yeah, 15 is when I got into all these older cars driving every day, and I was running points on the green car, and literally it was it was 200 miles a week from there to Crowder when I was in San Diego, and man, it was just killing 250 miles actually a week.
Yeah.
So
Well, when I get this 70 stage one GS going, I'm kind of on the fence what to do. I mean, I don't have the stock distributor, so I might as well just stab a Pertronic setup in there and be
yeah,
done with it.
be done with it. That way you don't have to mess with it. And
Yeah.
Michael Schmidt was saying he had luck with Blue Streak. I have luck with Blue Streak for the caps and rotors also. I agree. In fact, those are the ones that are in the back of my green car for the spare parts. But yeah, they seem to work just fine.
Hmm. All right. Well, Danny Boyd's saying HEI. So I don't know. Not for the GS. I don't think so. I'd have to run a wire just for it.
Yeah.
Um,
HEI is just. Is he saying that as like a question, or is that
I think
exclamation
he's
point?
telling me to put an HEI in that
Oh,
70GS.
yeah.
But
That's the only way to go. Just hide it if you can. Because it works
yeah,
awesome.
I just don't have. I have to run a wire for it. The GM doesn't run a ballast resistor. They ran essentially a resistor wire, and it
Hmm.
goes all the way back to the fuse panel. So then what you got to do is dig that wire out of the harness. Then you got to run a new wire out to the distributor, or you find something else that provides 12 volts at like it needs to be like it can't be like a 16 gauge wire just burn up.
Hmm.
It needs to be like preferably 10. But
Yeah. Clayton's asking a good question here, and I've run them both. And here's the go ahead and stock Chevy HEI versus Chinese HEI is a very much difference. Look, I've ran them both, and I've had both in my car currently right now. There's two things that burn up an HEI. One, heat. Get yourself a good heat sink. I go get a 96 GM Blazer that you can get them for 50 cents or a little aluminum little piece. You just re-drill the hole and it goes right on there and it fits. It's awesome. Two, grounding. So I run a ground to both studs and then ground it to my alternator and I run a daisy chain of grounds and go all the way back to the battery. If you have those two things, it doesn't matter if it's Chinesium or stock GM, they're going to last just fine. Heat and not grounding it is what kills those things. Believe me, I've tested that a few times.
yeah, well, the ideal thing is heat has always been the killer, even the stock GM
Yep.
modules, right? I always got lucky running Buicks because the distributor was up front, so it was right behind the fan.
Yep.
So it wasn't that critical. But when you get like a Chevrolet or Oldsmobile or something, it's got the distributor way back in the back of the engine, and it's like
Mhm.
shrouded by the firewall.
Heat kills it.
Heat just murders them. So the best thing you can do is on the bottom of the HEI used to be you can see where the screws come through to hold that module in place, and it uses the body of the HEI distributor as a heat sink,
Mhm.
right? Directly below it on the bottom, if you clean that pad off, and then
Yep.
you can run extra long screws that goes all the way down.
Yep.
And what you do is you get like an old computer heat sink
And put her on there.
and put it right on there, and then zip tie it into place or clamp it into place. But it'd be preferable to like clamp it with some kind of nuts and washer assembly. But and then make sure you put the grease on the bottom. And
Mhm.
what I use is like the stuff that everybody used to use was the white transfer grease, the heat transfer grease that you used to be able to pick up at the parts store. Most people don't even know what it is. So what they buy is electrolytic grease and put it on there, and it doesn't transfer heat that well.
Mm-mm.
But the best way to do it is you go to the computer shop and you get the stuff that you put on top of the processor,
Yep.
like in the heat sink.
It's awesome. It's
And
the white stuff. Yeah.
yeah, or you buy like the stuff I buy is this one called Arctic Ice, I think is what it is, or Silver Ice, something like that. It's
Mhm.
what the performance gaming computer guys put on their stuff, and it
Mhm.
transfers the heat really well. And so I've just been using that because it's just a heat transfer paste, is really what it is. But that seems to work really well. And you can buy that stuff like Silver Ice or Arctic Ice or whatever it's called, like
Yeah.
on
And
Amazon for like $3.
I put mine on the fender well on the Chrysler, and that fender well directly below that is where the wheel well's at, so it never ever
Oh,
gets warm there, and the aluminum heat sink goes right onto that. So
okay.
so you're using the aluminum, which is directly touching that, them touching the steel.
And the
So
steel just pulling the heat right out of it.
it
A
just
big
pulls the heat
fender.
right.
Yep.
Exactly. Yep.
Yep. All right. Dust Devil Garage says, are there any good sources for Chrysler ignition boxes? Man, this sounds like something I've heard this mentioned a couple of times that you can't get good ones anymore, right?
Mm-mm. No,
I wonder if I could actually start a repair on those because they're not that complicated.
no.
And that's
I,
what
I
I
was thinking about opening them up and putting an HEI module inside of it.
oh well,
Yeah,
you could
like
probably do that
rewiring.
too.
Yeah, so that and then because they've got a built-in heat sink on them, right?
Yeah,
And
they're
then they're
huge.
filled with and then they're filled with gel. So you just rewire it so that way you make the 5-pin, make one dummy pin, make it so that way the factory 4-pin goes in there. You lose the balance resistor and you call it good. It's a done deal.
Huh. Let's see here. Danny Boyd says kind of like retrofitting a remote TFI module to a Fox 508 EFI. It's exactly the same situation. It's
Mhm.
exactly the same thing. Well, let's see. Buick Smith says, speaking of cooling, oil trans cooler, In front or in back of radiator?
In front.
I always do them in front, always.
Yeah, and make sure it's not the whole size of the. You know, it's much thinner, and it's not going to. You know, it's not going to cover the whole radiator. It's only going to be one little quarter of it, so it'll be fine. Oh yeah, Danny Boyd said thermal paste right there. That's I could remember the name of that stuff. Thermal paste.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Let's see. Mopar's Mustangs and minivans says, so you're cruising down a back road doing 45 miles an hour, foot is stationary on the gas pedal, and the RPMs randomly fluctuate up and down. No codes are present on the ECM thoughts. Probably a bad coil, sounds like.
Or we're going lean. If it's going up and down, it's if it's starting to surge, it's getting either lean rich, lean rich, lean rich. So it's getting extra air from somewhere.
Oh, and Danny Boyd saying a vacuum leak.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would. Yeah, it's going lean from something. And usually the intermediate vacuum leak could be from the IAC.
Yeah, and Mopar Mustang and minivans saying I'll have to take a look at that, Dan. You don't notice it at idle. The problem with fuel injected cars is they can compensate so much that you almost don't notice it idle, because the problem is they're programmed to, like, let's say, keep the idle at 500 RPM or 700 RPM.
It'll do whatever it takes to do that.
And you won't even really notice.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that really gets them funky is sometimes they'll throw a check engine light. Is the one when they have a vacuum leak, but they'll still run just fine. When a carbureted car, you get a vacuum leak, under the carb, and it's like, you know exactly what it is almost as soon as you deal with it. Like, man, it's like it's got a vacuum leak. But a fuel injected car is much harder to troubleshoot with a vacuum leak. That's where, if you've never used the brake clean or the carb cleaner trick, that works great on the fuel injected vehicle.
Also, too, what I noticed is on the brake booster, I've noticed that too. That little rubber grommet where that piece of plastic, clamps into where the hose goes onto.
Right.
If you're going down a road and you get a little bit of, like, say, vibration on that, it wiggles a little bit, and then you get your intermediate vacuum leak right from there.
Well, every time I do a new car project, like, it isn't new. Like, my stuff is never new. But whenever I do a new car project, when the first time I fire it up, I plug off every vacuum line on the engine first.
Yep.
And then you read the vacuum on a vacuum gauge so that you know what you're looking at, with everything is functioning, right? Like, there is no vacuum leaks unless it's at the carburetor, and then you'll know, and you just adjust it. But let's say it's pulling 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 inches of vacuum, whatever, and you hook up the brake booster, and all of a sudden you got 15 inches of vacuum, you can automatically assume that the brake booster is bad. The diaphragm is bad. So let's see here. Okay, Old McDonald has a car. Says, would bad advanced springs cause the same intermittent fluctuation? It sounds like he's got a fuel injected car, but bad advanced springs, I would say no.
Yeah, because it would get to a point and just stay there. So usually, if it's bad springs, it'll just go out and stay out, but then it won't come back in.
Yeah, if you've had the GM, like, HEI problem, that's the big problem for them, was that they would throw the weights out, and then they would stay there, and then you try to start the car up with 15 degrees of extra advance.
Right.
So
yeah.
All right. Okay. Buick Smith says, will running a stick in the 333 class mandate SFI bell housing? I cannot remember. There's an ET brake where you have to run that SFI bell housing, I think. I can't remember that off the top of my head.
Yeah, isn't it like once you get into the 11s, isn't the 1150 or 1140?
I think it's mandated, like, it is ET mandated. I just don't remember what it is.
Yeah, I know quarter. I think it was 1140. My stick car that I had, I couldn't go underneath that in the Volkswagen because it didn't have any SFI bell housing on it, because it's bell housing part of the transmission.
Yeah. Dang, my phone is blowing up over here.
Mine's too. I had to put it on my leg.
Let's see here. Aunt D, I've been using a smoke machine for diagnosing vacuum leaks lately.
Yeah, it works awesome.
That does work awesome. And I saw something the other day. Somebody made their own smoke machine out of like a freaking bottle or like a beer bottle or a water bottle or something.
Mhm.
And they had their own. They just bought them cheapy smoke bombs you buy at the fireworks stand.
And you put it inside of a bottle and run the hose. That's actually
Yeah.
exactly what I used to do.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you put it into like an old Coke bottle or like a
Mhm.
yeah, it was actual glass bottle, and then you light the smoke machine and you would put them in there, but they had the big nut thing on it, and then you would take a rubber hose with a balloon and you would strap it over, like the ones you made the water weenies out of, that little
Oh, right.
rubber. Yeah. And then you would just hook that onto it and hook it up to whatever you wanted, and the smoke machine would go off and you could make it whatever color you wanted. So that way you could actually see it.
Yeah, that'd be good with like some yellow or orange.
Yeah.
But hmm. All right. Michael Schmidt says 97 Vortec 5.7 intake or head gasket allowed water into the cylinders. I wasn't aware. In morning, I tried starting and no turnover, then started. Now it has loud knock.
Not
And
good.
it's hydrolock.
Yeah. It's probably
But
been a
I'll
while.
guarantee you, if it's a Vortec, it's that plastic gasket that's an intake manifold gasket on that thing. That's where they go bad.
Yep.
Is it fails around the water jackets, generally in the rear, and then water gets into the cylinders. So I think I've replaced three sets of those now, but I used to have them trucks quite a bit because, well, when they started failing, when all the gaskets started failing, everybody thought it was a head gasket, and they're like, "Oh, let me dump this sucker off for cheap," and then you'd go buy them cheap, and you'd buy a freaking $70 set of intake manifold gaskets, and away you went.
Yeah. If it was hydrolocked and it didn't turn over and then it finally did, two things. One, you could have bent the rod. Two, or you just compress the bearing to a point where there's no more bearing there anymore, and that's what your knock is you're hearing that bearing.
Yeah, he's asking the rod or what, but
Yeah.
he's right. It probably, to be honest with you, if it started up with water in the cylinder, it's probably been a rod and it's
Hmm.
not straight anymore.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't happen at a high RPM, right? So
Mm-mm.
it just essentially will flex that rod and it'll stay there. And then you
Yep.
get this rod knocking noise, but it's because the piston is no longer square in the bore.
That's right. It's a little crooked, and so it's kind of rocking back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah, Danny Boyd saying the same thing, bent rod.
Yeah.
Let's see. Buick Smith says, Dallas, are you putting the Easy 302 into the S10? No. The Easy 302 is just literally going to be a video I do on the engine, and I'm taking it to the dyno, and then I'm probably just going to put it up for sale because I
Just
don't.
like that.
Yeah, I don't need anything. I just thought this is something that I ran across. You ever do something that you're just like, man, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Nobody else has done it, and so this was I want to do that. This is only literally like the second small block Chevrolet I've ever screwed with in my life.
Oh.
Um,
Okay.
and so when I figured it out, I was like, man, I need to do that before somebody else does. That'd be an awesome freaking video, Or at the time when I saw it, I was actually just going to write an article and try to get it published in one of the magazines, but I just never got to it, and life got in the way. And well, now life is no longer in the way. Got nothing holding me back.
Right.
So I'm going to get it done. And I just so happen to have a YouTube channel. So
It's one way to look at it, right? Just happen to
yeah,
have this, right?
yeah. So I'm going to utilize what I got, my resources. But I'm just about done with it. I ran into some problems where uh, I don't know if the engine was taken apart with an impact. Maybe that's the only thing I can think of is the threads for around the number one cylinder and all the top bolts around the
Mm.
top of the cylinder. There's no threads left. I put all
Oh,
new ARP bolts in there, put them in, went to torque them down, nothing. There's like they just literally spun. And I'm like, wow. And I'm like, did I do that? No, there's no way I did that. I mean, I ran a
yeah.
tap down in there, but I think there's just not enough threads in there or something. It did pull just essentially one ring of threads out, but it was only like one ring. So I'm assuming there must not have been much left. So I don't know if it corroded really bad. So I'm going to have to helicoil those head bolts around that cylinder.
Mhm.
So I've already got all the stuff to do it. I just need to find the time.
Yeah.
Let's see. Michael
Yes.
Schmidt saying, can the rod bearing, rod, and piston be replaced, or is it a bigger deal? Truck looks great. Advice? You need to find out if it's the rod or the piston. You
Yeah.
can replace just one.
Yeah. Take that cylinder head off, take the oil pan off, pull that piston out on that one, and go from there.
Yeah, and then you just get a new set of rings, just a ring pack. Just go to Napa. Napa was the place you used to be able to buy that stuff at, and I'm pretty sure you still can.
Yeah.
You got one ring pack, factory replacement ring pack style, and then one set of rod bearings, and then you should be good to go.
Yeah, and you could just do a compression test on it and see which cylinder it is, because you'll find it really easily. One's going to be really, really low, and that's the one you pull off. I've done that a few times on a 360 Chrysler. I hydrolocked it. Happens.
Danny Boyd says the bolt to the block. Yeah, the head bolts to the block.
Yeah.
It has no threads left on. There's just the 3 top bolts around that one cylinder. And the only thing I could think of is it had to corrode in that one cylinder because it's right behind the water jacket. And that's the direction that it circulates water. Or the other thing I can think of is that somebody took the bolts out with like an impact or something and just drove the threads right off of it. I don't know. It was weird because I haven't done anything with it. All I did was chase the threads, and then I dropped the new ARP head bolts in them, and I ran them down with it with just a ratchet, and then I went and got my impact, Then I went and got my torque wrench, and I took it down to 30 foot-pounds, and 2 of them just spun, and then one of them slipped when it spun, and I'm like, okay, this is not right. Something's not right here. But those were the only 3 on the whole engine that did that. So I'm assuming it has something to do with that top row of head bolts. I don't know what's happened to them, but they're not happy. So I'm gonna have to drill them out, run a helicoil in them, and then because you can't do. You were telling about the king cert, right?
Yeah, king cert. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no room for it on the top bolt hole.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Then you probably have to helicoil that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So I figured if I got a helicoil of one, I'll just helicoil the other 2. But
red Loctite.
Red. Well, somebody was telling me green actually locks it in even more.
Well, green will, because it will wick in. So you can use the green, but I like the red because if you put the red in, literally it's locked in there forever. The green, though, will lock. Like you can put it together and then put the green in, the green wicks in. So it really comes down to what you want.
Huh. Well, I'll see what I can do. I've never had to helicoil a block like head bolts. I'm sure it'll work just fine, but my gosh, is it like that? I feel kind of weird about that one.
Well, it's Chevrolet, so this is I've put so many of these things in those. It's half of the ones that I would build sometimes would have those, at least one helicoil or king cert in it, because they just corrode. The deck surface is only X thick. There's only so many threads in that coarse thread, and they just pull right out.
Huh. I've never even seen it before, but this is only my second Chevrolet, so it's got enough head bolts in it that it's like 42 Buick V8s in a row.
Right.
Yeah, dude, I've never seen something with so many damn head bolts in my life.
Yeah. Well, they're 7/16 too, so
they're small.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we don't have any questions here, so I guess if you guys don't want to tech talk, Shane and I will have to make up some stories.
I got actually something here. So when I was at P1, I brought over some. There's only one company right now making head studs and main studs for Slant 6, and they kind of cornered the market. Well, I like to mess around with Slant 6s. So P1, Point One, they make really bitchin' awesome billet aluminum blocks for all the top fuel guys. Plus, they make head studs and head bolts out of any type of material you like. So I'm going to present to you the very first ones. Check this out. From that's the main and that's the head stud. Now I did the head stud a little different than the ARP one because a lot of people like to deck these heads 300 thousandths or more. So you can, 150 on the head, 150 on the block. So there's plenty of room there for those. And I'm going to start carrying these things and I'm going to start selling them, man, because I'm going to beat the pants off of ARP on these things.
Well, let me show you something cool that I saw at the swap meet this weekend.
And one more thing, they are made in the USA. Everything, even the steel. So I got to tour the facility. It's awesome.
I'll do a John Wilburn here on you.
Yeah. Go
Okay.
full John Wilburn. Why not?
So the first one, if you can't read it, it says Holman Moody, 1969 Boss 429 block, prepped at the NASCAR shop, make an offer. This was at the swap meet, right?
Yeah.
Boss
Wow.
429 block at Cruising the
see it.
Coast. I told you they had cool stuff there.
That's cool.
Yeah, but you can get legit Boss 429 block. But sitting right next to it was, if you know your history, and I tell you what this is. This is an Allen Root Boss 429 block. And this is like rare as rocking horse shit.
Wow.
Right? Like this thing is this is the block that they used in Bigfoot. So in like the late 70s, early 80s, this was the pro stock block, right? So I thought that was pretty interesting that you could have bought one of those there. But he wanted, I'm sure, gargantuan money for it.
Right. Buick Smith, those are rolled threads, only rolled. We do not, let's say P1 does not do any cut threads. It's all rolled. And the outside diameter is a centerless ground machine, so that way it's within 1/10 of a tenth of a thousandth of an inch before it's actually rolled. And yeah, it's pretty cool.
Let's see. Shane, you ever get the trans question answer from your two pals at TCI from last week's stream?
Which one was that?
I don't know. I don't know.
I must have forgot, man. I'm sorry. What was it?
I don't know what the question was.
Yeah, I'll put it in my phone, and that way I won't forget.
Clayton's Toolbox asks, is there any updates on the Buick Special? No. It's still sitting in my garage, awaiting the rest of the sail panel to be, or the rear panel to be welded back into place, and then the rest of the supporting equipment welded back into place, and then the floor to be welded in. But otherwise, nothing has happened to that thing. I'm trying to get all this other stuff out of my garage. No more projects. I'm just gonna get done with all the stuff that I have, and then get back to the Special. That's what I'd really like to do. I'd like to have the Special ready for the 333 class. Yeah, Chris Cox is drooling over that Allen Root block. So,
oh man.
Yeah, I just saw that stuff there, and I'm like, my God, because it was just literally so funny. I was standing there in front of that stuff, and I'm like, I don't know what this stuff is worth. It has no price on it, right? So I'm assuming it's like,
if you have to ask the price, you can afford it, right?
Oh yeah. And it just so happens that right when I'm looking at him, Andy Wood sends me a text message. Hey man, did you find anything cool at Cruising the Coast? And I sent him a picture of those, and he was like, oh, are you kidding me?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Just when I thought I had everything I needed.
Oh, about the 300. Okay, so let me remind me about that tomorrow, Dallas. 300 ST switch pitch. I think that's, you wanted to know,
Super turbine switch pitch. Yeah, that's the super turbine switch pitch.
Yeah, what was the question about? Do you remember? Was it like, can one parts go into the next? Was that the question, or can the converters be rebuilt?
Can the converters be rebuilt? Is that what it was?
I think that's what it was.
Yeah, he hasn't. He hasn't replied saying what the questions were, but
okay.
Okay.
And one's asking about the
Andy. I bought ARP studs from Slant 6 years ago. Still haven't gotten to that project. Does ARP still make them? What is the company that you're using? P1?
Yeah, it's 0.1 or P1. They're out of like Rogersville, I think, Missouri. And it's American steel, 100% American steel, and everything's made in-house. Even the black oxide, they do all that in-house. Nothing shipped out, so it's raw to shipped out goods. And I'll actually have samples. They're on their way right now, and I'll have some samples here to show them off. And then that's why I've been holding off on building this Slant 6 here. My first one for the high RPM one for Plan Z is I've been waiting to do this. So yeah, this is
okay. So
it's been a development thing. So
Clint does bring up a good point. He says the hood's ready for mud. So my Buick Special hood is ready for mud. I had Clint from Clint Street Machines spending ridiculous amount of hours straightening the thing. And then when I talked to him about it, he was like, dude, this hood is like stupid heavy. Let's just get it straight and then make a fiberglass mold out of it.
Yeah.
And then make a fiberglass hood. And what I found is like, see, 63 Buick Special is a 1 year only car. If I started making them fiberglass hoods, I don't know how many would sell, but I would definitely have the monopoly on
it. You have the market cornered.
Yes,
for sure.
But I think just making the mold, if I got to make one, I can make quite a few more without much effort. So, well, with only half the effort, right? Isn't that what it is? Okay. So Buick Smith says the converter rebuild, and if you can make a switch pitch out of a 350 turbo.
Leave that up there.
I wanted to do a YouTube video on. I didn't know if I could or not.
Yeah, I'm going to take a picture of that. All right, I got you covered. What I'll do is I'll remember tomorrow. Sorry, I got busy and I just went out of my brain. We're trying to get stuff done for PRI and SEMA, so we're extremely busy right now.
We're trying to get to 666 too, right?
Yeah, and I was trying to get to Route 66. Plus, I have another race. I got to trying to coordinate with Just Mopar Joe. We've only done one of our 2 out of 3 match race, so he's in the process trying to get ready for that. So we're trying to figure out how to coordinate all that stuff before, after this month, everything really shuts down. There's only a few races. There's nothing on the schedule after Halloween, so it's weather depending on what race is going to happen. So, and we got to find a common ground where we can meet and go.
Danny Boyd says, "Want an ST300 stand up to some abuse?" I don't know. See that not a lot of people have answers to that.
I don't know
because it's never been tried. You could get a Super Turbine 300 behind a nailhead Buick, but only the 401 was available. So I'd like to try one behind a 455 because I think it's going to be about like a Power Glide where there isn't a lot of torque multiplication gear wise, so it won't be smoking the clutches. But what I'd like to find out is if the clutches and the steels are very similar to like a Turbo 350, and then you might be able to come up with a really awesome spring pack setup or a clutch pack setup, like where you do a Turbo 350 and you add in an extra steel and an extra clutch because you machine out, 110 thousandths out of the freaking drum. So it's something simple like that. And I think I'm kind of wondering if some parts from like 700R4 or the 4L60E where they have the 5 pinion planetary would fit in there because it's very much like a Turbo 350.
Yeah.
So if the Turbo 350 is interchangeable, but I think that's where I'd really like to do that. But the guy I would like to, who I really need to get a hold of is John Cope. And then go up there with my Super Turbine 300, and then we compare a Turbo 350. Even if I got to take both of them, he can get me inside of them and show me he has familiarity with it, right? That's what I really need. Somebody that's familiar with inside those transmissions to where you could look at it and say, oh, this will fit from here to there. And then this would be an upgrade. Well, that would be pretty bitching. And if I could make a switch pitch Turbo 350, that would be the ticket.
Yeah. Aunt D's saying something right below that.
Yeah, he was talking about the studs. Very cool. Yeah. Don't really need the strength, but some of the Model A stud kits I've seen, it just don't look good.
Yeah. So if you want to send me some of those, I could see if they have, they have a lot of studs that already been designed, and we can kind of go through it and see if there's something that's close to what you need already on the shelf. So basically it would just be a repackage then at that point.
Let's see. Clayton's Toolbox says solid roller versus hydraulic roller cam. Does the solid roller make that much more power if the engine doesn't RPM past 7,000, or are they pretty close in power?
Okay. There's actually, this is a lot of answers for this. So if you're doing cam for cam, let's just say you have 250 duration, The hydraulic roller technically is going to be bigger because of the lash in the solid roller, right? You're going to have 20 thousandths of lash. So at 50 thousandths, you're not going to have the same 50 at the valve than the hydraulic roller would because of as it rolls through. Typically, if you're going to go cam for cam as far as event for event, typically you got to go 7 to 10 degrees more on a solid roller with lash at valve to get about the same. If you were going to do cam for cam and put a hydraulic roller on and did a solid roller on the same cam, you could do that, and then you could lash it at, say, a tight lash 5 or 6 thousandths. But if you're not going past 7,000, really you're not going to see any benefit from it because you're not going to be revving past where the oil is going to be really going out. Now, if you're at 7,000 RPM for an extended period of time, solid roller. It's going to be a lighter lifter than all the internals on the hydraulic roller, and then you won't have to have the bleed down of the lifter and trying to fill it down as you go down the road. Or you could take a hydraulic
and
and
bottom it
take it
out.
20 thousandths off the bottom. So below 7,000, it's really not necessary. Some people want the mechanicalness of the sound, the tappet sounds, the valve train sounds. It's very mechanical sounding. Some people want the quiet, but if it's under 7,000, really, it's not going to make any difference unless you're writing power adders. That's a whole different story. But I'm basically just doing NA right now. So NA cam for cam, it wouldn't make much of a difference at all. In fact, I don't see. I think it would just be so negligible on the. You could probably lash the solid a little differently, maybe get a little bigger cam out of it if you went with like a zero lash. But if you're not going past 7,000, then what's the point?
I like the idea of the solid, but just because it's so simple, man.
I agree.
If you really just wanted to eat the maintenance and be like, hey, I'm pulling the valve covers like every other oil change.
Yeah,
I'd
it
just do it.
takes me 10 minutes to do it on my Slant 6.
Yeah, I mean the hydraulic rollers lasted for 200,000. I mean, how many would you get out of a solid roller setup?
Yeah.
4,000 miles on a typical V8. That'd be pretty awesome.
And in my Slant 6, I do it every oil change. I mean, I do an oil change. It's part of my routine at 4,000 miles. And everyone says 3,000, but I do it at 4. I do an oil change, filter. I change the gear fluid in the rear end because the 7 1/4 takes literally 1 quart of gear oil. So I just drain it. I have a plug on the bottom of it. I put a drain plug in it, and I drain it out, fill it back up, and then I change the filter that's on the transmission. I have a screw-on filter for the transmission. So literally that's my maintenance. I run the same filter on the transmission as I do on the engine. So, and I just fill the filter with fluid and put it back in there. So it's how you keep them alive. Yeah, they're not sealed up like new cars, so dirt does get into them. So,
well, old McDonald has a good question for the top starter bolt hole on a 727. At what point is helicoiling useless and welding or replacing the case recommended? I can almost stick my thumb or big toe through it.
The top bolt, I don't even use the top bolt.
Well, I know that. Okay, when you start getting like in your bell housing, if you have like, all right, Ford 302, well, even any of the Ford transmissions, pretty much, you had a bolt that went through the starter and bolted it into the bell housing, and then people would crank them down, and then
top starter bolt. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry.
And they would crank them down and pull the threads out, right?
Yeah,
and I'm assuming that's what's happened here to this transmission. There was a cheap, easy way I fixed it on a Ford because I had an AOD do that. And I was like, oh my God. And I had just had it rebuilt. And here it looked like I was going to have to pull the tranny out, swap all the guts at a minimum to another case. And I came up with this freaking awesome idea. I put a plug in it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I drilled it out, put a plug in it. I tapped it for a 3/8 pipe plug, right? It might not even been that big. It might have been like freaking 1/4 inch. And then I ran the pipe plug in there, and then I ran a drill through the pipe plug and then tapped that. And then I put a stud in it, right? And it never freaking came out again.
That's actually what I do on my race car. That's on this one.
Oh, really?
I basically I screwed up the threads on it, trying to screw it in, and because I had the wrong flex plate. So I just basically put I'm sorry, not on this one. It was on the green car. So the top bolt was completely stripped out. So I just put a stud in it with JB weld and basically put it straight. Once it dried up, then I just used it as a stud. So that's how I fixed mine.
Yeah, but that you gotta, the big thing is thinking outside the box. If you don't have one of those pipe plug taps, they're not all that expensive. They're on Amazon, maybe $25.
Yeah, I use this stuff right here. I use the JB Weld steel stick. It's the putty stuff, so that way it doesn't run away. And yeah, use that. Works good. Put a stud on it. Call it good.
Okay. Michael Robert Emery says, can Super Turbine 300 use SP parts backup? Okay, so the Super Turbine 300 is a switch pitch from the factory, and it looks just like a Turbo 350. I was wondering if you could use the Super Turbine switch pitch parts in a Turbo 350 and have a switch pitch 3-speed Turbo 350. I thought that would be the ticket.
Remind me that tomorrow when we talk. And then that way I'll ask a question if they've done that before.
Well, because I got 3 of them Super Turbine 300s. It'd be pretty awesome if I could just swap the pump, the input shaft, and then the solenoid into a regular Turbo 350 and see what happens. But all right. Let's see. Aunt D. Spin-on filter for the transmission. What trans and filter?
Oh, it's a 904. So basically I have AN lines coming out. It goes through a filter first, then it goes through a cooler, then it goes back in. And it's just a spin-on filter that I put up underneath the fender well on the driver's side. It's like one of these.
Oh, like an external oil filter.
Yeah, just one of these deals. This is a twin. This is the one that's going to go on the 68 Dart. Yeah, so I just run those with, now I run -6 lines on that one. But this is the one that's I'm actually going to start working on the 68 here soon. So I got all my standoff here. This is for my -10. I got an accumulator that's going on it. So it's going to go in the back. So it's going to have all the oil and two filters plus an extra 3 quarts.
All the filters.
Well, yeah. I mean, you got to have it because if you're going to road race something, you got to have that extra oil,
Oh,
so it's going to have 8 in the pan, 3 in the sump, and then the filters are going to have 2 quarts here. So,
yeah, well, you're going to run what the big filters, like the
tall ones.
Yeah,
the big not the 515 15s, but like they actually have the ones that are even longer than those. So they're gonna hide up. I don't know. I don't want to turn my camera, but under the fender, it's going to bolt up underneath there in the fender well, so you can't see it. But the filters are much longer than just a regular like standard Fram like PH8A or Wix 1515. So, yeah.
Well, and that's what oil capacity. Like, man, the more oil capacity you have, it seems like the better off everything is.
Yeah, just runs better. Yeah.
But all right, well, we're about an hour in. I know you were wanting to do some hardcore tech tonight, weren't you?
I was. Left it at work.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Dude, so how are we going to talk about this cylinder head? This is not a cylinder head.
This is not a cylinder head. The hardcore tech was going to be about the new Victor head that came out, that it's coming out for. Well, actually, it came out. It was introduced in like 16. It was going to come out as the new Victor small block Mopar. I had one of the castings, and so yeah, I was gonna do a touchy feely showy here, and I forgot it. So we'll save that for next week. How about that? So that way I'll bring it up here and everyone can see it. We look about it and talk about it. It's awesome.
Let's see. Duke Smith's asking, Shane, are you going to run a pump and a cooler in the rear of the 68 also?
For the actual rear end, I don't know yet. It's a 8 3/4, and it's aluminum housing, so it's actually aluminum center section. So I might just put cooling fins on it. I'm not sure exactly yet. I'm still working on that. I'm not gonna I'm gonna road race it, but I'm not gonna. I mean, most of the stuff's gonna be cone dodging and time attack, and most of those aren't past 20 or 30 minutes.
Dude, you should get ready and then go do that East Coast Timing Association thing with Junk Car Willie.
Oh, that's right over here at
it's in Blythefield, Arkansas. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then you run that mile or
Yeah.
5 miles or whatever it is, and then see
Mile
what
and a
kind of top
half.
speed?
hmm
Yeah.
That's what this car's for. In fact, my goal, if you look at my Facebook channel, it's my bio.
Your
It
Facebook
says right on
your
there.
YouTube channel.
Huh?
Your YouTube channel?
No, my Facebook. It's on my Facebook. It says
Oh,
that my goal in life to do 200 miles an hour in a car older than 1970 in something that I built. And so there it is. That's what I'm going to do it in right there. The engine's sitting right there. Hopefully, we'll see.
yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
Well, dang, man.
I'm going to
Okay.
try. Doing the math, I don't think I'm going to make enough horsepower with that engine NA
To go 200?
to go 200. Cross-sectional
No.
area and the coefficient of drag is too much. I would need
Nah.
I would need
Spray it
I would need like a car like you, something that's aerodynamic and
from the factory.
from the factory. Yeah. The coefficient of drag on, like, say, something better would be better, but a 68 Dart literally is a brick with a recessed grill, which is like the worst of the worst that you could possibly have. It doesn't get any worse than that. Then the back end, the back glass creates a nice eddy. Then where it comes off the back, not only does it flat, but it insets into the corners and creates eddies on the side and drag on the back. So it's like,
You know what you should do? What I think you should do? I think you should buy one of those fiberglass noses for like a Super Bird or a Daytona, and then section it and put it on a
graft it
dart.
on.
Yeah, put it on a dart.
Yeah, I'm going to lower it down as much as I can, and I'm going to put a diffuser in the front, and then I'm going to put something in the back. I do have access to a wind tunnel, so I might try to get in there and put some yarn on things and just see where things are at.
All
I'm
right.
going to try dumb first, like just brute force. I'm going to go fast, caveman Shane, 68 Dart, and then I'll get technical on that if I don't get close.
So, Buick Smith is saying, Dallas, would the stage 2 heads be considered race parts in the 333 class? I know what you're thinking. Those are too big of an engine, but I may have a plan cooking. Oh, I've already had a plan cooking for something like that for a long time, but I don't think you can get a big block Buick down that small. And then, because you cannot use a stage 2 head on a 400 block. It needs to bore like I think a minimum was 125 was the minimum bore you can use with the big valves of that stage 2 head. Now, what you can do is take a stage 2, put stock Buick 455 valves in it. Or what I found was even better. Instead of creating runner area, you just decrease the valve stem size, and you would go from your 3/8 Buick valve, which is in your stock head is a 2-inch intake valve, and I don't remember what the exhaust is, like 165. I don't remember whatever it is. But you can buy those valves with a 8 millimeter stem. That's what they use in like LS motors.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah, and then you just put some new bronze guides in the stock existing guides, and then some bronze liners, and then you can run an 8 millimeter valve. But I would run the smaller valves with the stage 2 ports, and then you could get it to a 4-inch bore, which would easily be the 400 Buick, and then you run a 401 nailhead crank in it and weld up the mains, and you can come up with 364 cubes, which would get you in the class. And the engine doesn't weigh any more than a small block Buick, or that doesn't weigh any more than a small block Chevy. But I don't know what kind of power it would make. I'm sure it'd be run pretty dang good, because the heads are meant for 455 stage 2. There's 364 cubic inches, so it'd probably run really good up at 8,500. All right.
Oh yeah, PH8A. I'm using PH8A as a style of filter. Basically, it's like a Ford Mopar type of filter that's tall. There's a 1085, which is just the same filter, just shorter, but the PH8A style, or the Wix 1515 is the same filter, technically. Oh yeah, Yeah, but they're not Mother Mopar, unfortunately. So they
That's
don't
what I figured was
exist.
going to be a sticking point for you.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's not Mother Mopar. So yeah,
imagine how bad like a pre-70s Ford would be with a Mopar engine in it. You couldn't find a bolt that ever fit. Even if you
no,
had one in your hand that came off of it, you couldn't get another bolt like it.
no, exactly. Um, but I'm going to try it with the 68. I've always remember I told you guys how I became a car guy, right? I got a ride in the 68 Hemi Dart, 4-speed, right there in California, in Poway. Okay, so I wanted a Hemi Dart, but now that I have a drag car, the Cookie Monster, I didn't want to build another one. So the 68 Hemi Dart is still going to be a Hemi. It's going to be a stick shift, and it's going to go fast. But so yeah. Um, oh, Shane, that meant for me. What's that?
Yeah, he was
Oh,
talking
for
about
him.
for him, yeah, to
Oh,
run that Torino. The earlier you go back, the harder it is to find a car that'll run 200 miles an hour from with a body style that was designed to be that way.
yeah,
Um,
right.
yeah, the 80s cars were the easy ones to pick off. Go grab a Regal or go grab a Thunderbird.
Yeah.
Mopar wasn't in the hunt in NASCAR in the 80s,
No.
so there wasn't really anything. The last thing that they would have had that would have been probably close would have been probably Murata or
Yeah.
Charger of that last couple of years.
Yeah, but the Charger still was kind of a intermediate car. It wasn't really I don't know if you could put a V8 in one of those things actually, because I think some of those Chargers were like,
Oh, I'm not talking about the K cars. I'm talking about
oh,
I was talking about you have the Murata, the Charger, the Cordoba. They were all the same body style.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The late early 80s, late
Yeah.
70s.
Do they
Yeah,
call them?
yeah,
Is that the Malays?
yeah. Some, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Dust Devil Garage says, are big block and small block Mopar lifters the same size?
Yes,
All right.
identical. Except for solid rollers. The center to center bore spacing is different on the lifters, but as far as actual lifters, hydraulics, yeah, they're identical.
All right. Fab Race Mount Repeat. Shane, I have run a Mopar in one of my Fords before.
Yeah, good for you. Uh, Brian, on the big block, small block Mopar, uh, take a look at some of the AMC lifters. They oil up through the push rod, and that puts a little more oil onto the cup. So like that way you can, if you tend to run, restrictors to the top, you can still get oil up to your rocker. Just have when you make your push rods, have a hole in the top of your cup, so that way you can push oil up to the cup that direction also. It just helps out, just extra oil.
Buick Smith says, Shane, that's how Big Red did it. Not a lot of aero, but a lot of horsepower. And that's all you
Exactly.
would need.
Yeah,
I think you put some nitrous on that thing and you would push it
I would
easily
do it.
past 200.
Yeah, I would basically use the nitrous in like say third and fourth. Uh, and I've got that aluminum chunk, and I have a plethora of 8 3/4 gears. So right now the one in it is a 323. I've got 355. I got a 370, and I think I got a 276. So I've got plenty of gears.
38 Racing says a bit off the race car builds for a burnout car. It's all about tire speed. So numerically lower gears would be the choice, wouldn't they? Yeah.
Yes, tire speed's everything.
Somewhere around 250, 260, 270 would be a really good gear for a burnout car if you're running a 3-speed. If you're running a 4-speed automatic with an overdrive, it would probably be around 308.
Yeah, I personally wouldn't run the overdrive because of the
Oh,
load.
no, it'll smoke it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I would just go 1-to-1 at that point. I would just run like I wouldn't go overdriven on that. It's just my opinion. I could be completely dead wrong. I just know that once you load them that much, they just tend to smoke right through that overdrive.
Dustel Garage asks, so no Magnum lifters in a big block.
No,
They're
because
the same
Magnum
diameter
lifters,
though, right?
well, they're same diameter, but they're dog bone style. So
Right.
they have a little chamfer on them. So that way you have to put a dog bone down. Then you have what is called like a spider that goes
Spider.
down, holds down. And you could, but then you would have to mill out your block to accept these dog bones, and
No.
then the dog bones
Oh,
that
you might have to
was
do
that?
that. You might have to do that.
Yeah,
I figured this out a few years ago when you couldn't get a roller for a Buick. No one made one, and then if you
yeah.
did make one, it was like $3,000.
Hmm.
But I figured it out. You can use in the factory stuff. what you do is you put your roller lifters in there and your dog bones up top because the dog bones just hold it. They keep it from twisting.
Square.
That's
Yeah.
it, right?
But the
And they
bore
allow it to go
spacing
up
is
and down.
different. So it's wider on a big block. So a stock one wouldn't work, is what I'm trying to get at.
Well, it depends how much you're looking at because those things have quite a bit of play in them,
Yeah,
right?
they do. Yes. But
Um,
I think it's 200,000. So it's substantial
oh, is it really?
difference. Yeah, so substantial. Now,
It's like a
I don't
quarter of
remember
an
how
inch.
much you would lose,
Well,
but
that would only be 100 thousandths off each one.
yes.
So it
Yeah.
wouldn't be that bad. But okay, and here's the other thing.
Hmm.
To hold the dog bones in place, you normally need a spider. The spider's bolted in the center, so it needs some
Yeah.
bolts and retainers and all that stuff to hold the spider. Or you can
Use.
buy, like, say, 8 adjustable push rods.
Hmm.
And what you do is on the back of your head, where the center of the dog bones is at, go straight up the head.
Hmm.
And where that's at, you put a dimple. Just get a drill and just dimple a little bit right there and put an adjustable push rod in there holding that dog bone in place. And then you crank it and you tighten it lock it in with it extended, and that dog bone can't go anywhere.
Yeah. Well, on a big block Mopar, your valley pan is just a piece of tin.
Oh, that's
So
right.
so you could just come right off the tin. So and do that because the whole idea of those spiders is so that way if it ever floats, it has a little bit of cushion. So you wouldn't want to lock it in solid. So I would just run it off of that tin and just dangle it down because all it's got to do is just hold it there. So it
Yeah.
doesn't bounce out.
Huh. So Clayton's toolbox says, aside from the T-Bird, what would be the most aerodynamic cars pre 1990? Okay, the easiest one is the Buick Regal, the 81 and up Buick Regal.
Yeah.
That thing absolutely changed the game in NASCAR in 1981 when it came out. Everybody was running a Regal in 1982. Everybody. I'm sure you've seen the Mountain Dew Harry Gant car, I think is what it was. But maybe not. Maybe it wasn't Harry Gant. Harry Gant had somebody else. Skoll, maybe. But either way, everybody was running a Regal in 82. After 82, you had the big ones were the you had the Monte Carlo Super Sports, were from the factory designed to run 200 miles an hour. With it, if you find the aero back glass ones, like the 87, 88. There was also a Pontiac made of those. Pontiac Grand Prix 2+2, and it had the bubble back window. So you can find those. And that's for the GM camp. For your Ford camp, really was just a Thunderbird. The Cougar had the same kind of body style, but it was never meant for aero. Matter of fact, the back window is inverted on it, so
Ugh.
it's like it creates the opposite
Yeah.
effect, right? So they're terrible for aerodynamics. But they were tried. Let's see. The Lincoln Mark 7 has a similar body as the T-Bird. So you may be able to use a Lincoln Mark 7, but I do not know if they were ever tested for NASCAR because I don't think they ever ran a Lincoln in NASCAR after like 1960s. I don't think so. Okay. So 38 Racing is the end. Oh, so Michael Schmidt's saying the same thing. Lincoln Mark 8, yes. I don't know about the Trans Am, but I do know that the Camaro and the Trans Am of that era, I'm pretty certain, didn't they run the IROC series with those cars?
Yes, they did.
So they were probably wind tunnel tested.
Yeah, just no T-tops.
Yeah, no.
It'll suck right out. We know.
Fly right out at 200 miles an hour. 38
No,
Racing says what I'm thinking.
130, and I know that for a fact.
Oh, the T-tops will fly out at 130?
130, they fly out if they're not bolted down. They suck right out.
38 Racing says what I'm thinking is a 327 461 X heads, a matching intake, not sure, a KM turbo 350, 12 bolt with high twos for gears, S10 short box.
Perfect.
It's a 327.
Just RPM.
Huh?
Yeah, it'd be fine because with the short box with an S10, all the weight's going to be up front. So you take out in the bed, you just get rid of some of the bed stuff in the back, so there's no weight back there.
Mhm.
Put everything you can forward, and that way they'll just spin the tires to the moon.
But
So
they'll
all the
never
way
really
to
smoke. That's
oh,
what the
they
problem
will.
was. Well, that was the problem with that Crown Vic at the burnout contest. Is remember it was gutted and it didn't smoke the tires at all.
Crown Vic.
Yeah, you remember the wide open Crown Vic that was up there, just wide open the entire time. Possum Junior drove it.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't even smoke the tires because there was no weight in the rear. And an S10. See, what I'm thinking is, all right, the Chevrolet is the wrong engine if you're going to use a big bore short stroke motor for a burnout contest motor. They don't make enough torque down low with that gear that's just hammering you, that 2.0 gear. Uh, it may be all right. The truck is fairly light, but I don't know if it'll do burnouts. But I would definitely, if it was me, I would throw, I don't know, four, maybe six bags of Quikrete in the bed. And then, man, I would, if you can find a three-stroke crank, that's
Right.
what you need. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it would work good even if you just had a 305 Chevy or a 307 Chevy. It would be pretty freaking awesome with something like that. You could use it in a 350 Chevy or a 327 Chevy, but that 383 crank is really going to help that thing make some torque and get the tires really rolling. Well, that 327 would come up in some serious RPM though. So, Danny Boyd says Darrell Waltrip drove the Mountain Dew car for Junior Johnson, so I was wrong. Yeah, Harry was indeed the Skull Bandit. Okay, well, that I was trying to remember which one. D late 80s Trans Am. Yeah, the late 80s, and then when they changed to the new body style, they ran the IROC in those too.
Yeah.
And then somewhere in there, didn't they have a year where they ran Dodges in IROC?
I don't know. What could they have run? They didn't have really anything that was a V8.
Embrace Mine Repeat says the Mark 7 was tested. They actually built a Mark 7 kind of with Bill France, stopped it before they really got to run it. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Let's see. Okay, Danny Boyd saying, I remember reading that the first time GM stuck some hot big block into the C3, its T-tops blew out on the test track.
I'm telling you, I was in the car and they were latched, but the rubber had gone and it literally sucked the T-tops right out. Right on the 15, we were going down over to Pure Platinum. Well, it was Dirty
Strip
Dance
club.
at the time. Yeah, to the strip club, and we were freighting. So, yeah, it comes out.
Buick Smith says, in my research, most 60s, 70s cars have a lot more issues with the air going under the car than the air going over the top. So anything to smooth the bottom of the car is beneficial.
Yep, I'm building a pan for mine. Absolutely.
Yeah, if you want to see, honestly, that in play right in your face, look no further than a Daytona. What is it, like 69 Daytona? And they have vents on top of the fenders, and it was actually to remove the air that gets trapped up under the nose of the car.
Yeah, Buff Del Campo actually emailed me some vents from the Trans Am series for my car, because me and him have been talking about this, because this is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm building a tray for underneath the car, and I'm going to get
belly pan.
Yeah, a belly pan underneath there. And then we're going to I'm going to have the car, and I'm going to put a diffuser on the bottom for that exact reason. So any air that gets in there is going to get out, and I'm going to get the air out of the engine compartment too. So that way I don't have any air stacking in there also. I'm going to vent that onto the side. So I'm going to have 4 different types of vents coming out from the radiator, from under the hood area, and then I'm going to diffuse the air that does get in the back out through the exhaust. Now the exhaust is going to come out the side. I have a NASCAR pipe for it, so it's going to come out on the passenger side, and then the back is just going to diffuse the air coming out the back. So I'm going to do everything I can. But yeah, Buff Del Campo, he hooked me up with some Trans Am vents just for that reason. So I'm excited about that.
So Danny Boyd said they did do IROC Daytonas.
Oh,
and Clint Street Machine saying they do IROC Dodges. So I want to say that was like 91, 92, somewhere around there.
What car did they have then?
Daytona.
Oh,
you remember the 2.2 turbocharged Daytonas?
Oh, so it wasn't a V8 car. It was a K car.
No, they were running V8s in them.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay,
it was
that
like it was a Daytona body on a NASCAR frame, right?
okay. Now that yes, because they did make some kit cars with those. Yes, I did know that, but I meant what I was saying is I didn't know they had a car in that time that actually had a V8 in it because I thought
Oh
everything
no.
was literally a K car
Yeah, it
with just a
was.
different training wheel that they bolted onto the back of it.
Yeah, it was the K car, and it had the 2.2 turbo. I think, matter of fact, those might have had a 2.5 turbo, but they were fast. I mean,
Oh
they
yeah,
weren't turds on the street by any means. I mean,
yeah.
look,
Dodge Omni was
and if you
awesome.
weren't around for the 80s had some really interesting stuff. Because not only did you have the Buick Grand National just kind of overshadowed almost everybody.
Yeah,
Uh, but Dodge had the GLH Omnis, and they had some that were called the GLHS, and that's like you wanted to stay the f away from those suckers because they ran like low 13, high 12s from the factory.
yeah.
They were stupid fast.
In
Um,
fact, there was a guy in Poway who had one. It was a two-door, and it was just gutted out, and it sat like this, and it was slicks on the front of it, and it was pretty badass. So
well,
you would hear him.
in Stock Eliminator, there used to be a group of guys that ran all Mopars. Jack McCormick, I think, was Jack McCormick Racing, and they had slew of those suckers because they had the minivan that had the turbo 2.2 in it with a stick. It was like a 4-speed or 5-speed. I don't remember. But they had the minivan in it because it ran like, and it was virtually the same drivetrain. So they had the
Yeah,
GLH Omnis. They had a couple of them Daytonas. And then they had, what is the minivan?
yeah.
Then there was one more. Could you get the 2.2 turbo in a
Sundance.
Rampage?
They,
Could you
they
get
had
it
a
in a Rampage?
Sundance too. Yeah,
Well, could you get it in a Rampage?
yeah. You can get it in anything. It was literally was a universal front end that you would just basically put whatever skateboard you wanted to put behind a shopping cart. Let's
Yeah.
let's call it to
Uh, oh, here's something interesting. Didn't they IROC trucks too? Oh man,
No, I don't know that.
me, I don't know that either.
I don't
I
know. I didn't follow it that much
I
that at
think
that time.
IROC pretty much died about 96, maybe. I'm assuming. I don't know if I ever saw it after about 96. They were running Trans Ams last I saw them.
Wow.
So Nick the Van Man says that my dad and I built several 2.2 turbos over a decade ago. They were our thing for a while. Daytona Shelby Z,
Mm-hmm.
it was 300 at the wheel, and the LeBaron got LeBaron GTC turbo too. I do remember the LeBaron. There was a girl I went to high school with had a LeBaron and had an automatic in it.
Yeah.
And they was the turbo one. And she was like, "Hey, come on, I'll let you drive my car." I'm like, "All right, cool." So I'm driving around. I'm like, "Man, this sucker's a little peppy thing." Well, me being stupid and young, here I am. I've been to the Buick Nationals about 1,000 times, and I realize you have to spool it up to get the thing to leave, right?
Yeah.
So I take it out. I pull the emergency brake on it, and I boost this sucker up. And I mean, I got it to the wood, and I'm like, well, I wonder why when to let go. And then all of a sudden, all the dash lights came on. I'm like, that sounds about to take it right there. And I just fucking let it eat, man. And it scattered the head gasket into a zillion pieces, man.
I gotta tell you though that the LeBaron, those are good, but my buddy had a Sundance, and it was the difference between the LeBaron and Sundance. The Sundance would have been like, one would be like the Cornet, one would be like the Roadrunner. It was like the Sundance
Oh
was like
yeah,
a stripped
yeah. The
down,
LeBaron was a really nice car.
yeah, but the Sundance was like this
Strip.
cheapo. It literally was the race car of that. Let's call it right because it had nothing in it. Literally had an AM cassette, FM radio. I think I had AC, and that's it. Roll up windows, roll down windows, and we changed the gears. It was like a 904, right? But it was a transverse mounted one, and they Mopar sold these gears, so it was basically when it would go through and it would transverse to the gear axle, and you changed them out, and the difference was like 323s to like 411s, Man, did it wake that thing up.
Dude, I remember the Sundance. See, I worked for, I don't know if you knew this, but I worked for Mopar for a little while.
I didn't
I
know
made
that.
all the interior pieces for them. And we had corporate cars that were like these cars, right?
Hmm.
And I had this Sundance. We had to drive it to Toledo, Ohio, to the Jeep plant and look at some parts that we had sent up there for the lower instrument panels on the XJ Jeeps.
Yeah.
And man, the head. I'd never seen a Mopar stripper model because that thing was like literally a stripper.
Yeah.
Because when you get in the car and the seats, like the seats were so simple. It was just like a vinyl
Yep.
back covering, right? And it wasn't even like a plastic covering. It was vinyl. It's just
Hmm.
like you could poke your finger through it.
Right.
And yeah, and then the covering on the seat was just like this cheapy burlap seat cover,
Yeah.
right? But it was all sewn on, and you're like, wow, man, this sucker looks cheap. But then when you get in the car, you realize how cheap it is because when you go to close the door and you just about pull it over to the passenger side
Yeah.
because they're so thin, it's like, oh my God, man, there's no weight to this thing. But the
Yeah.
weight is what made them freaking awesome because it didn't
Yeah.
weigh anything.
That's right. That's exactly what it was. It was literally nothing in it. It had rubber mat floor. It didn't even have carpet in the car. It
Well, we
literally
didn't
had,
even have ours was the 4-cylinder, like a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder model, which was
yeah.
probably only like a 2 liter or 2.2 liter, maybe. But it was I want to say it was a manual 5-speed, but
Hmm.
we got a neon to replace it, and the Sundance was cheaper than the neon. That's what I found was ridiculous because the neon
Yeah.
was supposed to be like the cheapest one, and it was a lot nicer
Yeah.
than the Sundance was. The Sundance felt like a early 80s base model pickup truck is what it
That's
felt like.
exactly
It
what it
felt
was. Yeah.
yeah, but it was a car, right?
But the car version of that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, my buddy had one, and it's funny. His whole family, there's three boys, and I'm friends with all of them, even to this day. Their last name is Carwin. Think about that. It was like the coolest thing. They're all into drag racing. Carwin, yeah. So the two older boys are brothers are into Toyotas, and the youngest, which is my age, he was into Dodges, the turbo Dodges. So yeah, it's good stuff. We had so much fun, dude, back then.
Oh, dude, I just remember well, I think I've told it on here before. Me and my buddies used to do this thing called Payday Friday. And it
Yeah.
was like, okay, we're gonna do Payday Friday. And then you show up, like bring your car, right? Find yourself a car. So you'd have like a month to find one. And it was always like this weird, obscure stuff that
Yeah.
was always like super cheap. It just the big one is it had to run. And like you'd show up like sometimes a guy'd have like 76 Cadillac Eldorado front wheel drive, 500 caddy, right? And the next time that you run Payday Sunday or Payday Friday would be the dude would have like an International Scout 4-wheel
Yeah.
drive, right? And it had like 488 gears in it. So it couldn't go over like say 40 miles an hour, but it got there really fast. But that was the kind of crap that we had. And then what you would do is you just essentially take all the leftover pieces from them and then combine them into one car and then sell them and then just try to get your money back. Right. But it was
Mhm.
fun. Oh my God, it was so much fun.
So I've never told this story before, and I'll tell it now because I think the statute of limitations is gone now by this point, right? So we're gonna go back in time to the 1990s, and you remember Escondido? Uh,
I
you
do.
remember? Okay,
Yeah,
so
we're the separate town.
yeah, separate town, yeah, exactly. But Escondido was one of the towns that actually had a real drainage system in them, right? So they all the all the spillways were literally concrete
Oh,
sidewalls, right?
okay. So I know what you're talking about. For those that don't know, go
Yeah.
watch Terminator 2 when he's
Yeah.
riding through the spillway on and he's carrying a shotgun on a Harley. That
Mhm.
is what he's talking about. And
Yes.
that's a SoCal thing, big
That's a
time.
SoCal, exactly. So we knew how to get in and out of these things. So you're talking about payday Fridays with the cars. Well, we happen to have a friend, and his friend went to jail, and then basically the car was been sitting forever, and they couldn't get it started. So we got it started. We were driving it all over. We lived in Poway at the time, so we went north about 8 miles, 10 miles north, and somehow we ended up in the drainage system of Escondido. And it's big enough for a car to be doing 80 miles an hour, literally through those water for miles and miles and miles, and you're going under roads, through tunnels, and it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and we were just having the time of our lives out there. And then you would hit some moss, and it's straight walls, right? So and it's not much bigger than, a car. We're doing 80, 90 miles an hour. We could probably got 4 feet on either side. But when you hit moss, basically, it's like now you're a slot car, because you would basically come off the side, and you would basically kind of like you run the ring around the side. We basically drove that thing until we blew out the tires. Yeah, that was and we just ended up leaving it there. That was yeah.
So the biggest winningest car that we had for Payday Friday was we got one that we nicknamed the shit pile Chevette. And it was a 4-door Chevette, right? And it had 4-cylinder automatic. Dude, the thing would not die. It would not die.
Yeah.
If you didn't come up with a car for Payday Friday, you got to drive the Chevette. And it was like, it might only be running on 3 cylinders, it'd be hammering all kinds of stuff. And then it would sit for outside for a year. Nobody checked the antifreeze on it. Nobody ever freaking changed the oil or nothing. And then
it was start and run.
It was like, oh crap, I don't have a car for Payday Friday. Go out there and mess with the Chevette, have it running in 5 minutes, and then take it out and just beat on it. I mean, it was like wide open the whole time, rubbing up against other cars, having fun, but it didn't cost anything. But it was that Chevette. I don't know how many Payday Fridays it did. I know I had to have done probably 15, 20 of them when I was doing them. So I don't know. And it was already there when I got there. So I imagine it was, luckily I never had to drive that pile. But anyway, yeah, that was Payday Friday. So much fun.
Nick the Van Man's asking, is that where they did the scene for the Gumball Rally? No, I think that was up there in that was actually in LA area. I think what they did.
Danny Boyd's saying they raced in those spillways in Greece.
Yes.
That's correct.
Yes,
that's it.
That's exactly right. But that was up there in like the LA Paramount area, north of us. But ours were a little smaller. But yes, that's exactly what it is, because literally everything's mountains, and all the towns are built in valleys, so you have to have these massive spillways. And believe it or not, it does rain in Southern California in the mountains, and when the snow melts, that's when it's the worst, and then the water just comes right on through. But yeah, they were mostly done LA River. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, but San Diego has actually the same kind of spillway system right through the center of it, to be honest with you, because in 2010 it flooded something serious.
Yeah.
And it all runs right through downtown.
Yeah. But yeah, that was so much fun, man. Some days when I'm having a bad day, I just think back to me and that spillway. It was just awesome, man.
Yeah, well, it's like, here's something I didn't know. Did you know that over here by me, not too far, I guess from me and you, it's probably about the same distance, maybe 2 hours each. There's a road course.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I know that. It's in Fayetteville, Tennessee.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what I'm building this for. There's also a new club place that you have to be a private member to. It's just north of you too. There's another one there too. But yeah, there's a road course.
Yeah, there's one in Bowling Green. You have the Corvette Museum.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just was kind of surprised that thing's only a couple hours. I'm like, dude, you know how awesome it would be to go lease that for a day and then just buy some shit pile and then go down there and freaking race it.
We'll have the No Name Nationals 2.0, the road course version. You know what I mean?
We can't call it the same thing, though. We'll call the Row Name Nationals.
Right. You got to have a stick shift, and right.
Yeah. But I think it would be fun. That would be a blast. Where it's actually, I would just probably call it Payday Friday.
Payday Friday.
I have no idea what it is. Why it's named that. It doesn't matter. You just go down there, show up with your $500 shit pile, and then you can claim it after the race is over. Anybody can claim your junk for $500.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to bring that for that then.
No.
Yeah. But I'm definitely going to bring that to. That is one of the tracks I'm going to hit up. There's actually a few tracks I've already checked off. I'm going to do some open road racing on this. I'm going to do the one in Texas. There's one in Nebraska, and then I've always want to do the Silver State Classic.
That's the one I always wanted to do, was Silver State Classic.
Yeah.
They also have
But
one called Spectre 316 or something like that.
is that the one in Nebraska or is it the one in Texas?
I think that one's in Nevada.
Oh, Nevada.
I think
Oh,
so.
yeah. There's really the big three that are going on right now that any given time. The one in Nebraska is actually really good. It's not that far really comparatively, and the one in Texas is like, man, it's out in the middle of nowhere, you know. So
So Buick Smith says, when I was 17, we drove a 77 Dodge Magnum in reverse for over an hour.
perfect.
Even drove to the next town 12 miles away. Ah, small towns with no cops used to be awesome.
Yeah, that was Escondido. We used to street race in Escondido. It was a big town, but all the problems happened on the other side. So, we knew where to go to street race and do all our wilding, and no one ever bothered us.
Shane 38 Racing is asking you, the Sandhills Classic, is that the name? Is that the race in Nebraska?
I think it might be. Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think that's what it is. Yeah. I think
Is
he's
your
right.
68 Dart, is it going to be road legal?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be street legal. I'm gonna drive this thing to work.
Well, why I'm asking is, do you want to like meet up and say like New York, get our ticket punch at the taxi, drive as fast as possible out to the West Coast?
Dude, you know what? I've always wanted to do a cannonball for real. Yeah. I mean, it could. Technically, I could put a big enough tank in there. And the engine is built with a lot of factory parts and on purpose. So it's a 6.1 higher compression, and it's got 6.4 with the short valve runner type of intake. So it's gonna have low end and top end. And I made a camshaft of the Windsor firing order, so it's a 4723 swap. I designed the cam loops just for this car, just for this. So I think it's 229 duration to 50 on the intake, 236 on a 110 LSA. It's going to have NASCAR exhaust on it. The headers, I cut and did all the wave tuning on that for that type of firing order. So it should work really good. So,
Well, let me know if you want to drive from like, say, New York to the taxi stand somewhere to like all the way to
like, say,
Santa Monica. Isn't that what it is? Santa Monica Pier.
yeah, it's to the pier. Yeah.
And let me know if you need a navigator.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure that's going to be worth like a couple thousand tickets, but it'd be awesome just to make it.
Yeah. Oh, hey, Mr. John popped in. What's
Yeah,
going on, Mr. Wilburn?
he popped in when I actually mentioned the possibly the cannonball.
Oh,
I don't know if it
is that
was,
what the
I
two
don't know if
eyes
it was
mean?
coincidence. I don't know if it was coincidence or he was like perked up now that I said something
Cannonball.
about it. Like, but
I could see John Wilburn in his van, Captain Chaos. Remember that,
yeah.
Uh, I could see John coming out and doing like the ambulance version. I'm Captain Chaos, little mask and stuff. That would be awesome, dude.
Well, okay. So Buick Smith says the three races I've always wanted to do are the Silver State Classic, the La Carrera Pan America, which is
Yeah.
essentially from like the U.S. border down to Central America,
Mm-hmm.
and then the Peking to Paris Rally.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's something I would. You know what would be pretty bitching, dude? Is like I think we need to come up with the Gearhead bucket list. The finish the
Right.
Baja 1000 race, the run 200 miles an hour at Bonneville, and then one
The
of these
Dalton.
races would be pretty awesome. Like the same car entered into all three races and just finish.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Wow. I've done the Baja 500. I just don't know if my bones could handle a Baja 1000. I mean, for real. I mean,
I don't know. I don't know if my back can handle it. I'm too
I
damn
don't know,
old. But
man.
maybe I'll just do like Mickey Thompson when he hurt his back, and then he still ran in it. They had him. Danny Thompson made him
A sling.
a suspension seat or like a
Yeah.
suspension sling that he sat in and drove the truck,
Yeah.
and that way none of it was on his back.
And a lot of those cars now run that style of suspension seat out there for that reason.
Oh, do they really?
Yeah, they run a suspension seat. So literally it's rails held in by. So some of the really fast guys run the suspension seats. I did on a KX 500. And I don't know if I could ever possibly ever do that again.
I was
Kind
just
of.
thinking about like, okay, don't overthink this. Those
Mm-mm.
bugs go out there every year. That class, what are they? Are 4 or 5, something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. Class 4 is stock bug with tires. Literally
Yeah,
stock Volkswagen.
and they just creep around and go finish the race,
Hmm.
right? Why can't we do something like that with like a Ranger pickup and a 302 and
Oh yeah, no, you
internal rail
could.
5 speed?
It would take you probably 2 or 3 days to do it.
How long does it take the bugs?
2 or 3 days.
Does it really?
Yeah, so they take a long time. Um, yeah, I think they send them out last for that reason. But it's the
Huh.
silt beds that are going to kill them, and it's I think that
Wow.
half the class dies in the first 2 or 300. Class 11, that's it.
That's
Class
it.
11,
Yeah.
class 11.
But I just
Yeah,
thought that'd be some of those amazing bucket list, gearhead bucket list stuff.
yeah,
Like I was telling you, when I was down in Australia and for 3 years, I regret not doing this because every year was something new, right? The first
yeah.
year I didn't know about it. Okay, I'll be honest, I didn't know about it. The second year, my wife was 8 or 9 months pregnant. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I won't go. And then third year I was transferring. So of course I didn't do it, the third year. But that Burtman Road race on the beach in Invercargill, New Zealand, that would
Hmm.
be so bitching just to fly in there, rent a motorcycle, go run that race, and then drive the motorcycle back to the rental place.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to tell you guys one little story about my motorcycle. I rode my KLX 300 on the beach down in Mexico for a long time, and we were going south all the way to Cabo San Lucas. And there was a morning we were staying at these people's homes, and they had like garages that they were converted. They were stops, and I knew that the next day was going to be, but when the tide was going to be the farthest out, and we're going to be going south about 150 miles. So I got up before the sun. I had gassed up, fired the bike up, I pushed it out and then fired it up, and we were on the beach and started up. The tide was super far out, and there was about 80 miles there where I saw not one human being. There was not any person around. There was nothing. There was no animals. There was nothing. And the sand was completely flat and smooth because the tide was so far out. And it literally, there was not one bump. It was completely smooth. It was like flying. And I remember I was basically flying back and forth, sliding it just, I was wide open, sixth gear pinned pretty much for 80 miles. Thank God for KX 500s. So I'm actually fifth gear pinned. And it was just awesome. And it was like, I was just flying. And I remember watching the sun come up, and then it was just, that's like a core memory forever. So yeah, that would be, when you were just talking about that, I just flashed back to that. So I had to tell that story. So yeah, that was,
Well, so Michael Schmidt says at Peking, we have a guy in our Plymouth club that has a hypo flathead 6 that runs that race and wins in his class.
wow.
And then Schweers and Gear says, my bug will be like an old school class 5. Let's go, Dallas. I'll do it, man.
Yeah.
And just to finish the race, that's what I want. That is amazing thing if you think about it. It's 50% attrition.
More than that now, probably. I don't even know if they make bugs that can survive that. You guys do that, I'll go down there with you guys, but I will be pit crew because I don't want to have the pain for the
He
next
just
2
wants to
weeks.
drink Tecates and freaking eat some burritos. All right.
I'm telling you, I've done the Baja 500, man. That's good enough for me. I soloed KX 500, Baja 500. That's it. That's all I need to do.
Let's see. Michael Robert Embry says open road racing is the best. It's the ultimate challenge. Nevada and Texas are the best. You can do it as a team or individual. Endurance racing proves all your skills and your build. Yeah, I think it's just those ultimate gearhead things,
Yeah.
like I'd really like to do some gearhead stuff that's like it's unobtainium for a regular guy to win the thing, but
Mhm.
it's not unobtainium for the regular guy to go out there and compete in it and just finish. Or, like I thought Bonneville setting 200 miles an hour record.
That'd be cool.
It would be cool because it's a home built car. Just build your
Yeah.
own car, go out there, run 200 miles an hour, and then get yourself a jacket. And then everybody that's there with you, put them right in the seat, have them get their own number, and then just freaking run them through. And everybody gets a hat or a jacket or whatever they get.
Yeah,
right? So I
that'd
thought
be
that would be
cool.
cool. Let's see. I don't know about this one. Nick the Van Man says, I want to race the Baja 500 on my dream bike, Adoka Combat Wombat. So I don't know what
Got
that
me on
is.
that one. I don't know that one. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, man. But
Kodaka?
I can tell you, I did a Baja 500 on the KX 500 with really bitchin' suspension, and I was hurting. Yeah. Look, I'm talking it up more, but I didn't. I was young and but it was fun. I had an awesome time, but I just don't know at the ripe age of 49 if I could get out there and do it again.
No, dude, you'd be wrecked for a while, I think.
Yeah, I don't know.
It'd be something that'd be totally cool to accomplish, but
Yeah,
like I said, just be realistic about it and just finish the thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to do that and do it with a car, I mean, I would totally do that with you if we did just a
Bug.
truck. Well, that oh, was it Walker Evans? Walker Evans did it in a Ram Charger and a Dodge D150, literally
Well, see,
straight
that's what I
axle
was
four-wheel
thinking.
drive.
Okay, way back when the trucks first entered the scene,
That's what
none
they
of
used.
them had that freaking crazy suspension.
Nope.
None of them. They had like 1 ton or 3/4 ton axles on a half-ton chassis,
Yeah, that's what he did.
and then had like 4 shocks per wheel. And you
Mhm.
just went out there and they didn't have pit crews even. They went out there, had their own gas cans in the back. They had jerry cans and had 3 or 4 tires on the damn thing.
Yeah, and they have a class for that too.
Do they?
Yeah, they do. They have those. So if you look at some Walker Evans old videos, literally he has a Dodge like D150, D100, and
Well,
he's out
think
there
about it. You got
getting it.
you get the Oli, the Olympia Beer Special Cutlass that was
Hmm.
on the frame, like a truck frame.
Hmm.
Or maybe not. Maybe it wasn't on the truck frame. Maybe it was on the freaking A body frame. But um, I just think something like that. If we were to show up, one, you'd be every regular guy's hero.
Yeah,
The armchair, bench racer.
I'm
That
gonna do
guy.
that one day, person.
Yeah.
Right?
But but here you are, real deal doing it,
Yeah,
and the thing that I want to do is like, how when they line the cars up and they set you off in times, and then what it is, the next car pulls up and they're all going to the same line, and then they hammer them, right? They take off, they shoot the gun, whatever you get, I don't know, some start thing, and they take off. And you ever notice when they turn the first corner, they're like up on 3 wheels, wide open.
yeah.
Well, the junk that we would have would be nothing like that.
No,
It would take off. It would just freaking slide all over the place. It looked like a wet mop going down the street, right? And then you would finally get to the sand because you start in the waterways in
yeah,
essentially Tijuana, right? Well, what is it, Ensenada? It's
yeah,
Ensenada.
yeah.
Right.
And in La Paz, I think is it's not La Paz, but it depends. Sometimes they flip the reverse. Sometimes they go different routes, but it tends to kind of go the same ish direction. But if that's something we would do, because you would have to stay within so far of the actual road course, we would definitely have to like pre-run it a couple times.
So Danny Boyd says, didn't James Garner drive that 4-wheel drive Cutlass? He did. And then also, Steve McQueen was in it a couple of times. Not the Cutlass. I'm just talking about the Baja. I
Oh,
think he did
really?
it on a bike.
Wow. Back
Uh,
then too. That's ballsy. But then again, the ruts weren't as big as they are now because the tires weren't 40 something inches tall and like they are now. Yeah, the thing is, I can only imagine how big the silt beds would be, how bad they are, because now engines are 800,000 horsepower, running 140 miles an hour. So those, that was the worst part is going to be getting through the silt beds. Literally 50 miles of crap.
yeah. And then see, like I talked about it last time we did the video last week. I was always the same way with the start and park guys. I thought it'd be so cool just buy a chassis that was legal for that start and park, and then just put like a AutoZone 302 Ford in it, right? And just go out there and run the thing. And then when they say, all right, now it's time to park, you did your one lap, you just keep running.
Yeah.
How like Do you remember in the 80s when they would crash the NASCAR? I don't know if you ever watched NASCAR in the 80s, did you? Or early
No,
90s?
no, 90s, and 90s I did a lot. Yeah.
Okay. When they used to crash, they'd pull them in and they'd tear off whatever sheet metal was flapping around. And then they
Hmm.
would come back out. They'd have like freaking 400 rolls of duct tape on them,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
right? And they'd be running around the infield like half the speed of everyone else and just getting flat run over. But they're out there trying to get their lap numbers up so that they can,
Good points.
be,
Yeah.
yeah, get paid more and get more points. And I thought, man, if you did the start and park and then you just
Kept going.
juked everybody, faked them out like, I'm not parking. And then you just kept going.
That'd be
Well,
awesome.
yeah, I mean, you're running an engine that probably gets, let's face it, probably twice as good a mileage as everything else out there.
Hmm.
So if you just didn't park, what are they going to do?
Black flag, yeah, or something.
Well, they might black flag you, sure, but
Yeah.
every lap I'm going up in ranking.
Yeah. Right. And well, that would be cool too, because I'm in the Daytona 500 or
Right,
whatever it is.
exactly. That's what it is. That's what I'm saying. Like you show up Talladega 500 and you got like this big goofy, like what you do is you build a NASCAR, you just buy it like a used chassis that's say like 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. That's about the time out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's been stick welded and booger welded all back together 4 or 5 times. And you just drop like a stock motor in it, 350 Chevy, right? And you put like some AutoZone wing on the back and whatever is going to allow it to be legal, but it's just gaudy and stupid looking, spinner hubcaps, the whole 9 yards. And you go run the start and park and you don't park.
Yeah, or you make a fun game out of it, like you said, and then like you do like remember Stroker Race, the fastest chicken of the South, like
Right.
you do something like that,
Yeah, you could totally do it, man. I think it would be
Yeah,
so much fun. But those are the Gearhead bucket list item things I thought would be really cool.
yeah,
Like there's also it. Okay, so one of the things that really just sickens me is like, have you ever noticed? Did you used to watch MythBusters?
yes,
Okay, you remember their test area they had a spot test area that was at the old Alameda Naval Base
yep,
in San Francisco, and you could literally go on the base and there was nothing on it.
hmm,
Just the old Navy housing and the runways and all that stuff.
forever, yeah,
Right.
yep,
Why don't I turn that into a freaking race once a year? Right?
it'd be awesome,
Wouldn't that
yeah,
be awesome? You're racing through town. Imagine the pictures you would get out of that. Now, there's no people there walking around, of course, right?
hmm,
But it would look really cool. You got somebody's race car flying down through 3rd Street, right? In
yeah,
front of like all these houses in the background. It would just look so nuts.
when I was playing in bands and music and stuff, we actually opened for. They used to have this race in North Island. That's
Oh
just
yeah, that's just in San Diego Bay.
yeah, exactly. So North Island, they would have a race and they would basically cone her off this whole area, and they would have all these nostalgia cars and then the SCCA cars and the old
Right.
Challengers and and we played there one time. We got VIP passes because we played there, and it was actually really cool. And I remember, and then they stopped doing it. So when they had those cars come to San Diego, it was really bitching. And I always thought, why don't they run through downtown? That would be the best pictures
Well,
ever.
see, and if you're IndyCar or kart or who does it now? Formula One, they
Hmm.
race downtown in these cities and they block off the city and they run downtown. I don't see why you couldn't do something like that
Yeah,
with like a bunch of shit boxes,
it'd
you
be
know?
awesome.
Oh, you know what would be even better is if you had like an RV race doing that. Like, boy, buy an old RV and go run it with a whole bunch of other guys running old RVs. Just be
But
nuts, man.
the thing is though is that California's so yuppity and so horty torty. Could you imagine me and you half liquored up on driving RVs through town,
Wide open.
wide
Yeah.
open, yeah, shooting flames. I
The
mean, making a
battle of the
show out of racing,
440, the RV 440, right?
right? With the headers glowing. I saw it. I watched them glowing, right?
Yeah.
It's still on
But Michael
fire.
Schmidt says you can add 700 stickers to hold it together. We used to call that
Yeah,
sticker bombing it.
sticker
So
bombing.
yeah, you could
Absolutely.
sticker bomb it.
Hmm.
Uh,
The homeless 400.
there you go.
perfect.
That would be the race to be at per year. It's like,
Right.
yeah, I mean, you literally charge like $1.25 for people to get in and watch it. I
Hey,
think it would just be a freaking
why don't we call it the Homeless 400 and we go to that racetrack that's halfway between me and you. We rent that thing out for a weekend and we have all these people in this chat and all the clowns that come and do this stuff, and we have a road race. Let's do that. Called the Homeless 400.
well, you
Perfect,
know,
dude.
yeah, everybody is just pretty much camping out there the whole weekend in their RV.
Yeah,
You
and then
know,
they race it.
we need to talk to them and see what it costs to lease the thing first, because it may be homeless 400 before we even get there. You know,
Right?
it may be like $10,000 per day.
Oh, that's funny.
Uh,
Sorry,
all
I had to
right.
yawn there for a second. It was funny.
No, it's all right, man. This is the kind of stuff that I like to do. You know, it wouldn't be so bad at an old abandoned airport, but man, I'm telling you, if you could get like a city setting
Oh, it'd be
or a
awesome.
town setting, oh, it'd be so freaking awesome.
Find a town that's having a problem like bringing people to it, and man, it would bring so much money to the area. They would love it.
Well, you know what? And that's one of the Blytheville with that. I'll bet you Blytheville would do it.
Probably.
That's where they do the East Coast Timing Association stuff, right?
Yeah,
So
like
it's like
Lake
they have the,
Elsinore, they do that race with the motorcycles through town and buggies and all that stuff. They had that Lake Elsinore, was it 500 or whatever it is? Remember
yeah,
that?
yeah, I do actually.
Mm-hmm. I
Let's see.
rode my motorcycle and yeah,
Oh,
can we
man,
rent a
Joe's
bus?
asking, can we run the bus? Uh,
Sure.
okay. We haven't even got anything going yet. This was just literally a spitballing idea right
What
here.
are the rules?
Yeah, yeah. Can I run my
What are the
333
classes?
car in it? No. But yeah, it would definitely be interesting and neat. But it would be fun to just put something together like that. Maybe that's where we need to come out with the monkey bikes to say, hey, let's run a monkey bike race, like
Yeah,
wheel to wheel in one of those
dude.
towns.
I'll tell you right now, you do that, I'm in on that one.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, I
I've
have
got so
one
much
too, right?
huh?
I have one too.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, like literally, we could jump in there and just freaking run the crap out of those things.
Oh man, I'd be so down for that. That would bring out my old inner racing
Maybe that's what we need to
spirit.
look at is if we can get a town to let us do that
Mm-hmm.
on the monkey bikes, and it's got to be like that Coleman CT 100U with the crappy cheap motor on it and the terrible everything. You know, that would be the best, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I
all
bet you
right,
this town right that I'm in right now would probably allow that.
Collierville.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. Well, you know what? I know Memphis would allow it. Then the cops wouldn't even
Right.
show up.
Exactly. That was gonna say we
But
could always go to Memphis. They
yeah,
wouldn't give a shit.
but I'd have to find someplace that's like a town that's, oh man, you know what? I do know. When I was stationed down in Pascagoula, Mississippi, there's a Navy base that's on an island outside of Pascagoula, and it has a 3 mile long causeway to get to it.
Yeah.
And they closed that base down a long time ago, 2005 or six. And it's an island, and like the whole thing is contained on the island. There's
Wow.
even a McDonald's on that stupid thing.
Wow.
And you could go flying around that sucker. That'd be so much fun. Oh my God. On an
If we're
island.
serious about the monkey bike thing, you know, we do sponsor Holly Springs drag strip, and that is a big, big drag strip. Lots of parking,
I
lots
wonder
of
if you can
parking
run
lots.
I wonder if you can run a monkey bike race there.
Oh yeah.
You know what? I can go to any drag strip and just lease a drag strip.
Yeah, but no, this they at this racetrack they had drag strip running. This is how big it is. They had drag strip running. They had two different road courses like cone dodging,
On
and
that
plenty of parking. What?
on that one track,
Yeah,
there's two road courses.
they had two cone dodging courses. Yes, plus parking for people. They have the a big
I can
square
see
area.
this being nuts, man, where it's like, all right, you know what? You're gonna have gas refills in the whole 9 yards.
Yeah,
You know, uh, huh.
that would be awesome. And then do it like where it's not just like it's for hours, like a 7-hour race or 8-hour race.
Oh my God, dude. Like What did the monkey bike 800, right?
Yeah. That's right.
24 hours or no, it'd be like less than that. Let's do like
Yeah.
12
Eight,
hours of monkey bikes or something.
yeah, 8 hours. 8 hours is good enough. You think of 8 hours would 8 hours of hell. That would just be awesome. No changes. You can fill it up, but that's it. And you basically just ride and you do as many
Until it
laps
dies. Yeah,
until
until
it
it dies. Yeah,
dies
whoever's
or
got the
you.
most laps wins.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Huh. All right. Well, you know what? We've ate up the whole evening now.
Wow, is it really already time?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Wow.
So too bad we don't have a waterway and two willing monkey bikers. But um, all right. So make sure on Friday you guys head on over to John Wilbert's channel. Check
Yeah.
out what John's doing.
What's he got
Uh,
going? John, what do you got? What you got talking about Friday? Has he got anything on the agenda or what's he last Friday, sorry man, John. I tune in and watch you while I'm working on cars and stuff, but I was out at Missouri, so I didn't know what you guys were talking about. So
I was out
whatever.
too.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll kick that idea around. That's where we just do go rent that road course and run the monkey bikes.
I think he's as prepared as us. We'll be live doing something.
Yeah, that was
Perfect.
exactly how tonight's show was. We came in
Exactly.
with no plan, and
Right. No plan. And it was actually
yeah.
great. Yeah.
But otherwise, we will catch you guys next week.
Yeah.
That's all we have for the Tech Talk Live. Since there wasn't too many tech questions, we tried to answer as many as possible.
Hmm.
So if you didn't get your tech question asked or answered, send an email to
Slant Daily Garage, yahoo.com. I actually started checking that again. So I wasn't for a long time, but I started checking it again.
All right. Well, we'll see you next week then. I guess
Yep.
we're going to get out here 2 minutes early. So
Yeah. All right. You guys
we're
take
not
it
in for
easy.
overtime tonight. So we'll see you guys next week.
All right. Take it easy, guys.